Hey everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. Today we're diving into a story that's shaking up both the political and legal worlds. The indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Yeah, the same Letitia James, who became nationally known for going after Donald Trump, and now she's the one facing serious legal trouble herself. So the question is this justice being served? Or is it just another round of political revenge in America's never-ending partisan battles? Let's break it down. So here's the quick rundown. A federal grand jury in Virginia has decided to indict Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, on charges related to alleged mortgage fraud. According to reports, she bought a property in Virginia in 2023 and claimed it was her primary residence in order to qualify for a lower mortgage interest rate. Which, if true, is a pretty big deal. Why? Because under U.S. law, when you apply for a mortgage and claim primary residence status, that's not just a box you tick for convenience. It's a legal declaration. You're saying you'll live there for more than half the year. If you lie on that form, it's not just a fib. It's bank fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud, basically a whole cocktail of federal charges. So, according to the Federal Housing Bureau director, a man named Poulter, James allegedly falsified parts of her loan application and misrepresented the property's purpose. That's what triggered this referral to the Department of Justice and ultimately led to the grand jury's decision to indict. James, of course, denies everything. Her office says this is all politically motivated and that the loan documents themselves never required her to live full-time at that property. In other words, she says, "I didn't lie. I didn't break the rules." But prosecutors argue, wait a minute, you said it was your primary residence to get a lower interest rate. That's misrepresentation. And that's where the case really turns. Now here's where things get ironic. Letitia James made her name and built her political career by going after Donald Trump. Back in 2018, when she was campaigning for Attorney General, she literally said one of her first goals after taking office would be to hold Donald Trump accountable. That was before she even had access to evidence or official investigations. And once she got the job, she followed through, big time. Her office filed nearly 100 different legal actions against Trump, his businesses, and his associates. The biggest one, of course, was that massive civil fraud case against the Trump Organization, accusing them of inflating asset values to secure better loan terms. Sound familiar? Yeah, it's eerily similar to what she's being accused of now. In Trump's case, the banks that dealt with him said they weren't misled. They reviewed the numbers, did their due diligence, and made the loans willingly. But James argued that Trump had still committed fraud by overstating property values, and she won. A New York judge ordered Trump to pay hundreds of millions in penalties and temporarily banned him from doing business in the state. At the time, critics said it looked political, a prosecutor targeting a political opponent. Supporters said it was justice, that no one, not even a former president, is above the law. And now the tables have turned. Those same words, "no one is above the law," are being echoed right back at her. So let's ask the big question. Is this karma, payback, or a genuine pursuit of justice? Honestly, it might be a little bit of all three. Let's start with the facts. A grand jury doesn't indict someone unless there's at least some credible evidence. That doesn't mean Letitia James is guilty. Far from it. But it does mean prosecutors think they have enough to take it to court. On the other hand, the timing and political context can't be ignored. James is a high-profile Democrat, and she's been one of Trump's most aggressive adversaries. So the idea that this is political retaliation, that Trump allies or Republican-leaning investigators are striking back, isn't that far-fetched either. The United States has seen this pattern before. Each party accuses the other of weaponizing the justice system. When Democrats investigate Trump, Republicans cry witch hunt. When Republicans go after Democrats, the other side calls it revenge. It's an endless cycle that makes it really hard for ordinary Americans to trust anyone in power. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Both sides, Democrats and Republicans, have at times used the justice system as a political tool. Under Trump, we saw efforts to pressure the Justice Department to investigate rivals. Under Biden, we've seen multiple prosecutions of Trump and his allies that, while possibly justified, also look politically motivated to many Americans. And now, when someone like Letitia James, who once used the system to target her political rival, becomes a defendant herself, people naturally wonder, is this poetic justice or just more political theater? It raises a bigger question. Has the American justice system become less about law and more about leverage? When prosecutors run for office on promises to get specific individuals like James did in 2018, it undermines faith in impartial justice. Because the law isn't supposed to target people, it's supposed to target crimes. Once you flip that around, everything starts to fall apart. Predictably, the public's reaction has split right down the middle. Conservatives are celebrating this as long overdue accountability, saying things like, finally, she's getting a taste of her own medicine. They argue that this is proof the left can't play the victim forever, that justice eventually catches up. Meanwhile, Democrats and liberal commentators call it a politically charged witch hunt. They say the right is now doing exactly what they accused Letitia James of, using the courts as weapons of revenge. Social media, as always, is on fire. Memes, hot takes, conspiracy theories, you name it. But underneath all that noise, there's a legitimate concern about what this means for the future of American justice. Because if every prosecution is seen as political, then none of them will be trusted, even the legitimate ones. This also connects to a broader issue, how differently justice seems to be applied depending on who you are. Think about it. When politicians like Hunter Biden face investigation, Democrats call it partisan harassment. When Trump faces charges, Republicans say it's political persecution. But when it's the other side in trouble, suddenly the same people are cheering for the rule of law. That's not justice. That's tribalism. And if the justice system becomes another political battlefield, then both sides lose. Because once you normalize using indictments to fight elections or settle scores, there's no going back. It's not hard to imagine a future where every new administration opens investigations into their predecessors, not to find truth, but to punish. At that point, we're no longer a republic governed by laws. We're just another divided nation governed by vengeance. Letitia James's indictment isn't just about one person's mortgage. It's about how deeply polarized the U.S. has become, politically, legally, even morally. The left and right aren't just disagreeing anymore. They're living in completely different realities. Each side has its own facts, its own media, its own version of justice. So when something like this happens, a Democratic official facing charges after going after Trump, people don't just ask, is she guilty? They ask, whose side is winning? And that's the real tragedy. Because the justice system isn't supposed to have sides. So where does this all go from here? Letitia James will have her day in court, and she deserves the same presumption of innocence as anyone else. If the evidence proves she broke the law, she should face the consequences. If not, then she deserves to be cleared. But either way, this case is going to deepen the conversation, or the divide, about how justice works in America. Maybe the bigger question isn't whether this is revenge or justice. Maybe it's whether we, as a country, still believe that justice can exist without politics. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, do you think Letitia James is being fairly prosecuted, or is this pure political payback? I'll see you in the next one.